StockPhotoGuru.com featuring Steve Harmon.
Hey guys, it's Steve Harmon again, StockPhotoGuru.com. This is video number 6 from taking you all the way from being a novice on stock photography and growing into being a professional residual income maker who is managing professional workflow. And on video 6 here, we're going to be talking about your digital asset management, which is still part of the workflow, but very important part of it. I'm going to be recommending some software, which does cost some money. If you're a student, you can get it for a lot cheaper. So, or you can use a friend's software. But I highly recommend you getting a copy of Photoshop and a copy of Lightroom. Those are the two things I use. People use Aperture, whatever. But what I'm going to be telling you requires you to have Lightroom and Photoshop from this point. Notice that on my last video when I talked about grabbing your images from your CF card, I did not talk about importing them through Lightroom or through a different software that'll grab them directly off your card. I don't want you to do that. I want you to do it manually. And then the next step here is I want you to do the import into Lightroom. That's the first thing you're going to do. Some people still use Bridge, and they do it all manually that way. A lot of you can find different workflows, but what we're going to do is we're going to use Lightroom. So the first thing you're going to do is you are going to create a Lightroom catalog. I don't like using Lightroom's backup structure. I don't want to lose their file and have all my backing up be lost to. I want my disks and I want my folders to all be renamed the way I want them to be named and access them that way. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to Lightroom and you're going to create a new catalog. You can find that procedure, and we might do a video on that. But if you don't know how to make a Lightroom catalog, go online again, go into YouTube and find out. Someone will show you how to easily make it. So you make that catalog, have a folder. I would keep it on your main computer that is just your Lightroom catalogs. And just call it Lightroom catalogs. Again, use the same structure, date, month, day, shoot description, and have that all in there. You can, again, catalog all your catalogs. It makes it really easy to go search and find those as well. But what you're going to do is go in there, and let's just say today I did a stock shoot, 2012_4_4_ stock shot of salsa and chips, whatever. Keep that on there. That then is made, and then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to go to the import function and import photos. When you import the photos there, it'll take your raw images, start importing them, and I usually do standard size previews. It takes a little more time, but you can bang through your images a lot quicker than if you're using if it doesn't make any kind of real previews for you or really basic ones. And especially if your computer's slower, you're going to want to have some previews generated for you. So it'll be a lot of work, trust me, and it'll be very frustrating if you have no previews. So use standard size previews. Generate your catalog that way, and that's the first place where you're going to start working with your images before you even get to Photoshop. So after you've imported them in the import mode, I usually move over to the develop mode. From the develop mode, I use my left and right keys, my little scroll keys down there, to move through my images, and I go through the images and I star with 1 star, which you can use the 1 through I think it's the F or the 1 through 5 keys. You can figure it out, whatever the case is. There's also color coding you can do. If you want to use colors, go ahead. But I use stars, and I star the images that I like, that I want to do. And now, at this point, I'm not really looking for sharpness. I'm not looking for any kind of errors. I'm just going through it pretty fast and just what's sticking out to me. Now, it might take you more time than it takes me, and that's fine. But just make sure you go through them adequately and just star the ones you like. So you go through that. Then after you've starred all the images you like, and you can go through it a couple times if you want to in the develop mode, I would then go and you can filter by your rating. And if your rating is 1, make sure you click the 1 star. Again, if this is all new information to you, go ahead and learn about Lightroom, but you can filter it by star. Then I see all the images that I liked. That way I'm not seeing all of the images anymore. I've just selected it down to the ones I liked. And then on that time, I'm going through them a little more carefully. Sometimes I'm zooming in, making sure there's no real technical issues. If my focus was supposed to be on a face or something like that, but it ended up being focused on the knees, and I can't really use the image for what I want, I go past it again, and now I filter them on, I mark them as a number 2. So all the ones were my initial likes. All the twos are the images that I've looked at technically, and I know they're technically sound, and I can start moving on now to edit them and start exporting them and start working on them to actually be able to upload into stock. So at that point, after I've now filtered the images again to two, so now all I'm seeing is two. I'm not even seeing my ones, and I'm not seeing all the original images. I'm only seeing my twos. I go in there and I normalize the image, which means if I've got a color balance issue, or if there's a spot, or just so that it looks pretty darn good, almost ready to upload, and it might be ready to upload directly into one of my stock. Okay, so after you've exported your images into TIFFs, into the proper folder structure that you have, into a subfolder of your main raw folders, that's again titled the same thing as your original folder, but just mark it as like out, or mark it as TIFFs out, or export TIFFs, or whatever. Again, we're doing TIFF because we want to make sure that we don't lose any information there. And if you need to go back and edit an image, like remove a copyright part of an image, or remove the Apple logo from a computer, or whatever the case you need to do, or remove a big old zit off someone's nose, whatever you need to do, you can grab that from your TIFF, and you're not going to have any destruction in the image. So that's something to make mention of. You don't really want to keep re-editing JPEGs, because every time you make a JPEG, it compresses the file, and that compression can lead to compression in your image. You can visibly see it, and that'll lead to image rejection. So we want to edit from TIFFs. So once you've exported them as TIFFs, I would upload them into Photoshop in 5s or 10s. They can be large images all the way up to over 100 megabytes each. And that will allow you to not overburden your computer and go through them at that point. Look at any other smaller issues you need to edit. If at that point you need to do some larger Photoshop editing or some very mild Photoshop editing, sometimes the healing tool is really easy there. Sometimes the curves tool that's there is really helpful. There's a lot of various ways of editing your images, and on this video series we really can't get into a lot of video editing photo editing techniques, because there's just so much to deal with there. And but if you want to look at very specific types of things, there's plenty on YouTube to look at, and plenty of things to look at when you see other images on stock sites and try to emulate those looks. That's a whole nother area of kind of growing in your expertise. But right now, you just want to kind of normalize your image and finish normalizing your image. Things like blemishes that you want to remove with the healing tool, or if, again, you want to do some further cropping or some dodging and burning, or various different things that you're going to learn when you start using Photoshop. If you don't know how to use Photoshop, you're going to have to get your hands dirty and start learning from online, or going to some other sites about how to basically use Photoshop. But that's why we bring it into Photoshop as a TIFF. It's uncompressed, it's safe, it's all fully there, and then at that point, what you can do is you can export it into a JPEG. Again, export it at the most, the largest size, which is 12 for a JPEG, and just do it as a standard, export JPEG 12, and you're going to be doing another subfolder, not underneath your TIFF exports, but again, the same main folder, but your subfolder is going to be, again, using the date structure, using the same description, and you're going to call it JPEG out. Those images should be ready to upload to your stock agencies. Now, at this point, we haven't even joined any stock agencies, but that's fine, because in our next video series, we're going to talk about what we're going to do now that we have images to upload, and how we want to start going and to start making some money. So thanks a lot for watching that video. Next one's video 7, and how we actually get into dealing with our stock agencies.